So I was thinking about the Buddha who had lived and died in India. I was thinking that the Buddha had died a long time ago, and now there was nobody who was talking and teaching about this thing that he had known and that I now knew. So this knowledge that was known by the Buddha in India, this knowledge arises from the developing of awareness, the developing of sati. When we move and we develop sati to know our movements, then this accumulates, and when it is full, when it is thriving, when it has grown up, then it becomes knowing. This knowing arises, and this knowing is not a knowing outside ourselves, which is the knowing of thought, but this is the real knowing, the knowing inside ourselves, the knowing of ourselves and of what we are. And when we know this, then we know Rupa Nama, we know body and mind, and we know Rupa acting and Nama acting. As the body acts and the mind acts, they act together, and we know it. And we know Rupa disease, Nama disease. There are two kinds of Rupa disease, Nama disease. First is the disease of the body. When the body is sick, we can go to the doctor. The doctor can examine us and give us medicine. Sometimes he gives us medicine and we become better quite quickly. Other times we have to take this medicine for a long, long time before we become better. And other times we can take this medicine for a long time and we do not become better. We must die. So there are three ways in which the doctor's aid may affect us. But with the second kind of Rupa disease, Nama disease, the disease of the mind, we have to develop sati. We have to depend on the developing of sati. So this disease, the disease of the mind, which is anger, delusion and greed, may be cured. So after knowing this, then we know dukkha, anicca, anatta. Dukkha is our very being. Each of us is dukkha. Turning the hand up and turning the hand down is dukkha. Breathing in and breathing out is dukkha. Blinking the eyes is dukkha. Swallowing saliva is dukkha. Every movement is dukkha. We are a lump of dukkha, a lump of suffering. And we also know anicca, impermanence. Impermanence, anicca, means that it cannot be stopped. If we do not move our hand, then the eye blinks up and down. If we do not blink the eye, then we breathe in and out. And if we try not to breathe, then we think, thoughts arise. We cannot stop the moving. The movingness must continue. This is anicca. And anatta means not self. It means that we cannot control it. We cannot control this thing. This rupa nama cannot be controlled, but it must go ahead according to its own duty. And after understanding this, then we understand samuti, convention. The convention is very, very extensive. It is impossible to describe the full extent of convention in our lives, convention in this world. For example, male and female are convention. Ordaining, being a monk or being a samanera is convention. So this Buddha image here is convention. Convention is something that ordinary people are attached to. They are constantly attached to convention. Convention is also things like ghosts, deities, spirits, and so on. All these things are convention. And unless we really know convention, then we must live attached to convention. Why is it that we attach to conventions? We attach to externality. It is because we don't know. It is because we don't really know. This not knowing is called in the scriptures avijja, ignorance. And it is because of this ignorance, because of not knowing, that we do wrong, we speak wrong, and we think wrong. It is because of this not knowing that we attach and we suffer. This not knowing is the thing that deceives us, and it gives rise to evil in our lives. After this, we know religion and we know Buddhism. We have heard the words about this, that religion is the teaching of one who knows, and that Buddha means the one that knows. But we just know the words. When we develop sati, and the sati is full, it is filled up, then we have the knowledge arise, and then we know that religion is the person, every person. Each individual is religion. When a person knows, then they must teach the thing that they know. The teaching enters the ear. Every human being has an ear, whether they are Chinese or Thai or French, whatever that human being is, he has an ear for the teaching to enter. So each human being is religion. Buddhism is the one that knows. The Buddha is the one that knows, which is Sati, Samadhi, Panya. So when we know the one that knows, then we understand, we know evil and we know grace. Evil means darkness, stupidity, not knowing. Evil comes from ignorance. People that are ignorant teach other people that are ignorant, and the listeners believe what they are taught and do as they are taught, because both the teacher and the follower are ignorant. They do not know. So when we do not know, we can be deceived. We are deceived by people. But when we know, we have grace. Grace means the developing of sati, to have awareness, to have feeling, to feel oneself, to know oneself, means grace. It means to be intelligent, to be clever. I have understood religion and Buddhism and evil and grace from that day until this day. I have understood it. This knowledge arises in the mind of each person that develops sati, that develops feeling of themselves, awareness of themselves. Each person, when they know themselves, this is what they will know in their own mind. So this knowledge is the knowledge of Rupa Nama, and it is the first step. When we know this, we know Rupa Nama, but we still do not know Nama Rupa. At that time, I continued my practice after I knew this, and I walked backwards and forwards doing walking meditation. At that time, I had never seen and known thought. I had never seen and known the subtle thought. I knew thoughts in the way that all people know their thoughts. I knew when I was working and when I was thinking about working and looking for food and thinking about this and that. But thought itself I had never seen. I did not know the characteristic of thought. At that time, as I was walking backwards and forwards, a thought arose, and I felt that thought. And I wondered to myself, who had come? I thought somebody had come. The second time the thought arose, then I saw it, I knew it, and I understood it. And the third time the thought arose, then I knew its characteristic. I understood thought completely. When we know the characteristic of thought and we see thought at its source, then we know Nama Rupa. When we see thought and every time it thinks, then we know the ending of dukkha. So when we see thought and we know the source of thought, then we understand watu. Watu, there are two kinds of watu. There is external watu, which are trees and mountains and cloth and air, and all the things outside us are watu. And there is internal watu. Internal watu is our body and the mind that moves. And this is also watu. It is also material. When we have seen the source of thought, we have seen thought as it arises at its source, and we have seen the mind, then we know watu, and we know the characteristic of the mind, and we know Paramatta, we know the actuality, which is Nama Rupa. Knowing Paramatta means that we contact the mind as it moves. First we contact the body as it moves, and when we know the actuality, the Paramatta, then we contact the mind as it moves. And as the mind moves, we touch it, and we know it, we feel it, and we know it. And we know its characteristic, which is changingness. It can change completely. When we know this, when I knew this, then I understood anger, delusion, and greed. Anger, delusion, and greed are like three trees, and the middle tree is delusion. Delusion just means not knowing, means ignorance. And it is because of not knowing, because of ignorance, that the other two exist, the other two can arise. So we understand the characteristics of these three things. It is because of ignorance, because of not knowing, moha, that we can have anger, which is to be troubled, to be heated. And we can have lobha,